something wrong with the technology today. So actually this is a band which has been, actually developing. It's only part of it. The band group is bigger. So here you can see that children learn to develop confidence, but also communication skills, because they get to sing, for instance, in Turkish, they get to sing in English. Again, as a team, they do develop different skills. Now, how to improve agency? Like, if I go to, say, to the camp, do I just say, I want to help you? Come, let me help you with drama. Is that it? Actually, I faced this issue when I first went to the camp, because my first visit was only for observation. I just wanted to go and see or assess the needs of the teachers and students. And one of the teachers told me, we are doing our best, we can't do more. What do you think of, for instance, a student who is, who's hungry? He's in the class, but he's hungry, for instance. Or he lost someone, He just doesn't want to communicate with people. So these kinds of challenges actually really drew my attention to drama, and it's amazing. There's no time to report on the impact today, but I'm sure I'll be able to do that later. How many of the students who were like traumatized, who have like post-traumatic disorder, they came to build their own confidence gradually, and they actually took the lead. So it proved their agency was quite improving with the help of drama. Again, talking about like a legal perspective, yes, we need to think of improving agency, but we can't just help the people with resources. We need also to do something about their rights. For instance, if people can't move from one place to another, that's not going to enable them to either proceed with getting a job or even continue their education. Again, they have to choose the right to choose where they want to live. For instance, when people cross from Syria, they have the option to go into the camp, or they go to the city if they are denied access. And most of the time you have families who are just divided in different places, some of them in different camps, some of them back home. So it's a growing crisis on the social level as well, not just on a humanitarian level. So there should be more done. And to be honest, like, it's not impossible to do these changes, because one day we wake up and we hear different legislations passed by the government. So I think what needs to be done is not give favor to a certain number of people, or say, for instance, you have a rumor that this decree is out, but you never know when it's going to be in effect. All these things people have to live with, and it does hinder their ability to be, agent of change. Now, how does reflect on me as a researcher? Let me give you a quick hint about my access story. The reason I moved to do my research in the city, like I did my intervention in the city, although I did the observation in the camp. But one of the main reasons was I was denied access to the camp. And it helped me so much that people in the camp were already moving in and out between the city and the camp, and some of them were in the schools in the city. And because I used to film like the lessons in the previous visit, whenever I saw the students, they said, "Oh, let me video, tape this lesson for you." So you can see, like, although they are kept separate, kept, confined in different places, there's still this tendency for Syrian people to cross borders, to go and, meet each other despite, all the borders that are put. So I want to say here that my agency was so much affected by the agency of the participants. Because I was an outsider, I didn't know, how to go about things. So I really depended so much about the guide of the locals. So whenever they were in a strong position, they were informed, they were able to do things. This reflected in me, and I was able to, navigate my way in the field. Right. But again, I didn't just learn from participants. I also tried to involve them and shared the good practices that I've been through. For instance, how I applied, for instance, to see, say, certain officials in, the council, like the municipality there. All this, continuous dialogue with the participants really helped enabling both sides, so it was mutually useful. And I want here also to emphasize that, I know I went there on a mission. I have like some ideas to help these people, but I also went there as a human being. I did realize that this is larger than, a classroom. It's larger than, teaching method or even improving, the skills of these teachers and students. I had to act, as a person there. I had to respond to needs, for instance. I had people asking me, for instance, to help with finding them jobs. Someone who hasn't got any support, and they haven't got any money, so I try to connect them again with the locals, and after I built, some network there. So, I mean, a researcher can be quite, resourceful in the field because you spend time there, about like 3 months, say, and most of the people who are, you've been negotiating access all the time. So you get to know so many people, and it's very helpful when you refer them to, the right resource. Again, like by both teachers and students, it is very effective when, for instance, the students looked at their teacher and they saw that they are using, for instance, different methods. They are, for instance, learning new skills. They wanted to, do the same. And the same for teachers. They were looking at me and saying, "Oh, we also want to do something similar. It is possible, to succeed. It is possible to, someone who has been applying once they and for a scholarship and they failed. They see like examples of real people who are not just stuck in that place, which is very, promising. Now let's have a look at some ethics. What can we do about it? Well, we need to increase our imaginative ability to identify with the suffering of others. Only then do we become able to view them as potential members of our own moral community. We can't say, keep saying they are the others. We need to identify with these people. With the camps, the perfect camps, the 5 stars, they are still camps, whether they were tent camps or container camps. They are places of confinement, and people would not want to stay there. I remember after my first visit, I said to the people, "I will see you again," and they said, "No, we don't want to see you again here. We want to be back home. We want to be somewhere else." So there is a big, drive for the people to be on the move and not to stay in the camp. And I can't see why these camps For instance, they are provided with lots of facilities, schools, sometimes you have surgery, playgrounds, so I don't see why there are walls. Like, let's just break these walls and let the people live. Again, it's important to question and challenge these representational and discursive forms of refugees that has become standardized practice across the nation-state borders. We really need to question the taken for granted discourse. Nothing is, unchangeable. Whatever we try to, change, whether at the grassroots level or, at policy makers level, it is going to reflect to the wider, and going back to globalization and global discourse. Now, the refugees' account are disqualified, while the languages of refugees, relief, policy science, and development claim the production of authoritative narratives about the refugees. And this is what brings us to the project that was done, with which this workshop is marking today. It's very important that we acknowledge, we listen to the first-hand accounts of the people, because after that we become more able to understand rather than just depend on second-hand accounts, or even I don't know which number, reading some articles from I don't know where. It's simply, written by this agency, it means it's true. I think this is an invitation to question that. Avoid treating refugees as objects where they have no power over the creation or production of knowledge. Again, this needs to be, reconsidered, because most of the time you have, research done with refugees, where information are taken from them, but what do they take? What is their contribution as people? It is very important that we involve them in the action. It's not just they receive these services or support. They need to have an active role. Refugees make a community of people instantly in touch with each other, not only across many exotic locations, but with the home as well. Where and what is home? Not just as physical entity and location, but as a process of belonging in a very different territorialized world. Again, this emphasizes the community vision of refugees. We are not talking here about faceless individuals who come and cross the borders. These are community who come with traditions, with culture, with values, and they have their own collective identity, which really needs to be supported, and because it does connect with their home, and it gives them the chance maybe to go back later. Right, I think I want to stop here. If you have any question, I'm ready.
Thank you.